lobby. Let's all go to the lobby, lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to Now Slaying, an It's Slay's podcast production where we break down the latest and greatest in the world of horror. I'm your not-so-humble host, Colton.
I'm Rowan.
And today on the show, we're going to be discussing Jurassic World Rebirth, which was released July 2nd, 2025, exclusively in theaters. Now, Rowan, listeners of the show should be familiar with the fact that I'm an unabashed dinosaur kid, and I've seen every Jurassic Park or World movie that I could in theaters. But outside of the couple we've done on the main show, how familiar are you with the Jurassic movies, and were you looking forward to Jurassic World Rebirth?
Well, yeah, so obviously the first one, like, very familiar with. Obviously. When we review that, I saw that in the theater, all that good stuff. Same with the second one. I had to get myself, like, re-familiar before this, so I was one that, for all the worlds, had never seen them, really kind of no interest in them. I have opinions on Chris Pratt, so
I think most of the world has opinions on Chris Pratt at this point.
I kind of made it my task. I knew this was coming up. I knew you were excited, and I said, let's rock and roll. So I made the financial commitment to just buy the whole, the whole kit and caboodle in 4K, and I was like, let's do it big, and I pretty much made it all through. I didn't watch Dominion. I didn't finish Dominion.
Were you enjoying what you were seeing of Dominion by the time you tapped out?
Not really.
No.
but I saw enough. I got the gist of it. So you know what? I like to forgive and try to forget. So I was like, a new start, new people. Obviously, seeing the trailer, I was like, okay. Seeing the talent attached, the director, having kind of excited. So I was ready to be transported back to, what was it, 1992? Was it 92 or 94?
93.
93, yeah. And have my mind blown again. What about you?
Yeah, so obviously I was excited for this a little bit. Like, not crazy. There's loads of other movies that are coming out this year that I'm way more hyped for, like, Weapons next month, per se. But I absolutely hated the Jurassic World Dominion. I thought that was an absolutely terrible, awful movie, just disrespectful to the franchise, bringing back all the OG folks that they could, and it was just awful. The whole main, plot basically being about locusts was just terrible, and it was just awful. It was overlong, it was overwrought, it was boring, and I hated it. So I was interested in seeing a new take on it. Gareth Edwards is obviously a very competent director. I'm not the biggest fan of Godzilla, for example, that he did like probably a decade ago now, but I enjoyed the creator. I thought Rogue One was good at the time for what it was, and regardless of kind of your opinions on the movies he makes as a whole, I find oftentimes he works well with the budget he's given, or they look good at the very least. So that was the aspect that I was excited about. I thought the trailers for this looked decent enough. There was some stuff in it that obviously looked silly or goofy or over the top, but I was like cautiously optimistic that this was going to be half decent. And after seeing some of the reviews coming out where it seems very divisive, where people kind of think this is a pretty solid like reboot of the franchise, or, they absolutely hate it and says it's the same old shit. It was the sort of thing where I was still interested to see what my take would be. So is this the rebirth of the Jurassic World franchise? Well, before we get into that, let's take a look at the trailer.
Go! No! Open the door! Come on! Please! Come on! Please? Please open the door for me! I'm sorry.
Jurassic World, rated PG-13, in theaters July 2nd.
Jurassic World Rebirth was directed by Gareth Edwards and written by David Koepp, and the story is as follows. 5 years after Jurassic World Dominion, an expedition braves isolated equatorial regions to extract DNA from 3 massive prehistoric creatures for a groundbreaking medical breakthrough. Now, here on Now Slaying, we like to keep things relatively spoiler-free up front before getting into the more in-depth, spoiler-filled discussion. So, Rowan, what are your spoiler-free thoughts on Jurassic World Rebirth?
Well, I mean, you kind of brought it up there in the intro. Like, I will give it this. I thought it did look pretty good. Like you said, like, I have a lot of faith in Gareth Edwards. I do like his Godzilla. I really, really like the creator. Like, he makes very epic things, and I know he can make them on pretty low budgets. Yeah. So I'm like, this guy's given a lot, you're giving a lot of money when you're kind of handed this mega franchise. And I know they did a lot of like kind of exotic location shooting. So, the look of this, I thought was really, really good. I thought the water stuff looked amazing. The jungle stuff looked really good.
And there's a lot of water stuff in this movie as well, which I think the other movies kind of dip their toes in at times, like Jurassic Park 3, for example, has a water sequence, or Jurassic World, there's the Mosasaur, and, Afterworld, it kind of crops up for like one scene in each, more or less. But this one, I would say, the first probably 40 minutes, and also a couple of other little action set pieces, water factors pretty heavily into it.
And I don't know your feeling, but, as a Jaws guy, I kind of like the water setting, and the water dinosaurs are kind of, I'm into it because, one of my issues, which we'll get in with this also, but I really have this issue of like, as this franchise goes, like we're just like making up dinosaurs now, and they got to be bigger, they got to be scarier. There's like all this kind of stuff. To me, as real as you can imagine this franchise being, I just kind of like, like the first one, it was like contained to like real dinosaurs, and it was like, or
our perception of real
of
dinosaurs at the time.
Yeah, yes. Obviously, the velociraptors, just our childhoods were ruined when they told us, they're actually like the size of like chickens, and they're hairy. But like to me, as this went on, I don't know. It's just like I said, I think it's a bias that like the water one, I was kind of like, but you know what? Like the first Jurassic World, I was like, oh, okay, like let's go. Like I got the Sea World like reference going on here.
Of course, yeah.
I'm like, this is let's do this. But I think this actually, like I said, I think this uses the water the best. The rest of it, I'm going to be honest, like I was not loving it.
You didn't care.
I didn't care. Like, obviously the intro into this, like, I thought was interesting because it gave it, I felt, kind of this, what I kind of missed from the original 3, which was, we covered the first 2 on the podcast because there are such elements of horror in monster movies weaved into it where World like lost that plot. World was just like pure action adventure blockbuster. Yeah. So this one, I was very open at the beginning of being like, okay, like, you know what, we're like kind of setting this up as more dipping our toes into like this horror monster movie, and I was like really for that, but then it just kind of, drops that for most of the runtime.
Yeah, there's a couple of set pieces that definitely dip their toes in the horror, and I think you said your kid thought this was terrifying when they watched it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely terrifying.
Yeah. But yes, by and large, I don't think many people that listen to most of the things we cover on the podcast are going to be afraid or scared by Jurassic World Rebirth. It's a PG-13 dinosaur movie that gets scary at a couple of points if you're, probably 10 years old or even younger. And
I just thought, like, plot wise, I wasn't big on the script overall. I thought, I'm a fairly big fan of Scarlett Johansson. Like, I like a lot of the stuff she's in, and obviously Mahershala Ali, you know,
Oh, yeah.
amazing. And it was
The guy's
just
killer. Yeah, he's great.
You know, and I know Jonathan Bailey's like a big thing right now. I don't really have opinions on him or like.
I actually really
Rupert
liked him in
Friend.
this movie, though. He might have been my favorite out of the three, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say I wasn't familiar with him, and I thought he was pretty good. Obviously, you know, I came into this for Mahershala Ali, and I came out like a little disappointed, like. Just a lot of like undercooked plot, I thought. Undercooked plot.
Absolutely.
And I just didn't think they knew what they wanted to do with this. Because obviously this story kind of gets split in two in the middle. So there's like two different stories kind of going on. And one of them I just didn't really care about. Like we'll get into in the spoiler section.
I would like to hear which one you didn't care about in
Yeah.
the spoiler section.
And then the other one, I was like, all right, like this is what I kind of want. And
Okay.
yeah, I just didn't really mesh with the script, but I'm blabbing a little bit. What about you?
Yeah, so to kind of rewind to what we basically said to kick this all off, the cinematography I think is absolutely great in this movie. I think they do a really good job with the sense of scale. A lot of foreground usage, kind of like putting humans in the frame with dinosaurs, or even humans in the frame with just, let's say, a very large cliff or a large tree or a large boat or anything. It gives it this kind of epic feel that I think a lot of the Jurassic World movies in particular were often missing. It's kind of like one of the main thesis statements of that trilogy is kind of like, oh, wow, dinosaurs. We got to manufacture them. They got to have more teeth. They got to be scarier. They got to be interesting, because everyone's kind of lost interest. And I find the filmmaking kind of sells that a little bit as well for a lot of those movies. It's not very interesting, or they don't really care about the size of the dinosaurs oftentimes.
Yeah.
So I thought this one kind of brought it back to its roots a little bit in that department, at least, where even though a lot of the dinosaurs we're dealing with in this movie are mutant or look a bit different than the previous entries, it's at least they're kind of shooting them in a way, filming them in a way a lot of the times that I think it kind of makes them feel larger than life. So it's a little bit more interesting. The set pieces you mentioned as well, I think a lot of the set pieces in this movie worked for me, like quite a lot. I think it might just come back to the way they were filmed, but I thought a lot of the kind of the way the action flew. I don't know. Basically how it progressed in the scene. I was always interested. It's obviously we've seen people being in harrowing situations with dinosaurs many times, but I found like a lot of the different sequences in here felt a little bit different, or at least something we've seen before, but like twisted or tweaked a little bit, where it didn't seem boring. Dominion, when I was watching it, it felt like very phoned in, everything we've seen before. This felt like kind of shades of what we've seen before, but filmed in a much more capable way that made it feel a little bit more interesting to me. Filming on location, I think, was a great idea. Yeah. Obviously, there's still some like CGI hellscapes in the movie at times, but by and large, it feels like these people are actually in the jungle, going through the jungle and coming across dinosaurs. And something you didn't touch on, the dinosaurs in this movie weren't overly personified outside of probably the T-Rex, who, the T-Rex is like the franchise mascot at this point. The T-Rex has to be a little scary, but also kind of a little friendly, because you want the kids to buy the toys. So it's the sort of thing where in Fallen Kingdom, you wind up having, the dinosaurs like winking at the camera and smirking and stuff. And in Dominion, you have some moments where it feels like a dinosaur might be down and out, and then people can rally around the dinosaur to make it kind of rise up and fight again. And there was none of that sort of nonsense in this movie. It was, these are dinosaurs, or these are monsters in this sort of monster movie. And to that effect, the D-Rex, when it's in the movie, that's kind of the new big creation that the movie's marketed on. I thought it was pretty cool. It definitely looks a little dopey, a little goofy, but I thought the way they capture it a lot, mostly in the third act, it works. I thought it was kind of frightening. There was a couple of moments that were a little bit surprising with kind of what it did, and I enjoyed that stuff. But yeah, by and large, there are a lot of detractors from the movie as well. For me, the pacing, I think, is a little tough. It takes 45 minutes to get to the island, which Obviously, there's a little bit of water stuff, and some of that stuff is good, but some of that is just people sitting around on a boat delivering a bunch of exposition, or it's people sitting in a museum delivering exposition, or people sitting at like an oceanside tiki bar delivering exposition. It's a lot of stuff that it's kind of just table setting that I think for anyone who has seen any of the movies in this franchise, you can kind of fast forward this sort of shit now. We're all here to see them get to the island. We're all here to see them interact with dinosaurs. So some of that stuff, even though it was, similar to the very first movie, the original Jurassic Park, I was kind of like, it's taken a long time to get to what a lot of people here are seated to see.
I found the exposition too, a lot of it like necessarily wasn't super successful at delivering the stuff, like the Marshall Ali stuff, like his whole, I was like, what a muddled like exposition of his backstory. They're like, there's the story of like a kid, you know what I mean? Like they're trying to do this like woe is me, and then
tragic backstory for him.
Yeah, and I was like, they didn't really convey it, so the entire movie, I still was like, even though they showed a picture, I'm like, wait, what? Like, none of it made sense to me. I'm like, I'm seeing a picture that looks like it's from like the 60s, and like, I just didn't understand what was going on, and they were so vague about it because they don't care. Like, it's like, this stuff doesn't matter. They're gonna go somewhere, and they're just gonna get attacked by dinosaurs. That's what we want.
We'll get back to that specific aspect of whether or not they care about Mahershala Ali's character background, like when we get into the spoiler section, because I have some things to say about it as well. But that pretty like easily goes into the writing, which I completely agree. The writing in this movie is terrible. A lot of the exposition is given to the A-list cast, I think purely because people want to see these, actors on screen, but they have a lot of difficult dialogue to get through, and it's all pretty boring. And, because of that, a lot of the performances suffer. For me, I think ScarJo just completely phones it in. I've seen some people saying she gives a great performance in this movie. I'm just like, okay, if you think that, that's great, but I didn't see it. There's some really bad attempts at humor, specifically in the beginning of the movie, when they're kind of like roping in the team to go to the island. There's some really awkward jokes. And when you do get on the island, there's a character that's obviously the comedic relief that, I don't know, is kind of like a representation of the Zoomer demographic that basically whenever they piped up, it didn't work for me at all. And then, speaking to the Mahershala Ali character and character arcs and whatnot, I think the movie thinks it satisfyingly builds up these character arcs, but
yeah,
I didn't think they were very well delivered by the end. Also, there is something to be said that when you're making the 7th entry in a franchise, that there's still just so much iconography from the first movie. Like someone like me who's a huge fan of these movies, obviously I like seeing little, homages or a little reference, or especially if it's like obscure or kind of hidden. But this movie is like chocked full of like obvious shit that anyone who's seen the movie one time 30 years ago would get. That the screenwriters and the filmmakers should have blushed. That "When Dinosaurs Ruled the World" banner must have fallen down in the background of probably 3 or 4 separate movies now. And don't get me wrong, of course we all think of the moment in the first movie, but it's still like, can we do anything new at this point in time? This was supposed to be a rebirth, and a lot of what they're still showing is stuff that we saw literally 30 years ago, or more than that. So a lot of that stuff, it's not damning. Well, bad pacing and bad writing is pretty damning, I'm going to be honest. But the rest of the movie, like the cinematography and the action stuff, I think was like decent enough to keep me somewhat interested. There were some things that really broke my heart. Redesigning the Spinosaurus, this is a nerdy dinosaur kid thing, but they redesigned the Spinosaurus from the 3rd movie quite dramatically. And I thought, even though as a kid I was heartbroken by the Spinosaurus and, when it fights the T-Rex at the beginning of that movie, I thought as like a new apex predator, it did look very different from the T-Rex, and it was kind of interesting. And I remember as a kid when I used to be drawing all the time, I would oftentimes draw the Spinosaurus just because it had a lot of really interesting kind of lanky dimensions to it. It's a very uniquely designed dinosaur, and I don't even know if it's accurate to what they're supposed to look like, but what they look like in this movie is awful. They look horrendous, and there's packs of them in this movie, and they just always look garbage. So I guess maybe they're mutated in some dimension. I guess that's the excuse for it, but I hated the way they looked. And the real heartbreaker of this, I think the score in the Jurassic Park movies, and even in Jurassic World, to tell you the truth, the one that came back, the fourth one, I think oftentimes the score of these movies save a lot of it. It really like sells the emotion. There's a popular comment that basically it talks about John Williams and how with the original Jurassic Park, he essentially wrote a love song for a brontosaurus, and it kind of, gives it so much heart and wonder when you see these dinosaurs. In this movie, dude, they use the score, the iconic notes from it so many times that it didn't really work. They're always reprising something from before, and that's where it's kind of like, once again, I'm saying I wish the score in this, sure, pay homage a couple of times, but it should have really been something more unique. It definitely like bled into the background, and I couldn't even recall or really hear it most of the time. So for a Jurassic movie, that's pretty disappointing for a big fan like myself.
Yeah, I was going to say, I 100% agree with the score stuff. Like, I do think the score, I mean, to me, especially like the first 3-4 of these, like, is really, really strong. And this one, I was kind of listening for it, and I'm like, okay, like, I get it. Where, we want you to think of the first Jurassic Park, and that's what we want you to think about, and just, like you said, just kind of reusing. I also kind of, I get it. I get the dinosaurs. They're in the ocean. They're in their land. They're in the U.S. in like parks and stuff, just laying down, hanging around. But I don't know, man. I think I'm kind of, when's it time to go back to park? Like, I'm kind of, to me, if you're going to have a rebirth or think of something else, I'm just like, this is just you're just clumping this in with the worlds again. And I get it. They're like, they don't care what Colton and Rowan think. They're like, we made a shit ton of money and screw you. And we're going to attach these to, cause I'm, even kids now, I'm sure kids now are probably more familiar with, Pratt's trilogy than the original trilogy. So it's like, that brand recognition. But even little things like that bug me about it. I'm like, man, like, why can't we age it, figure a different name, or let's bring it back to park, guys. Let's just go OG with it.
Yeah, I would have liked to see them actually make good on the Jurassic World conceit of dinosaurs being present in human society and being everywhere. There's obviously little clips of that in Dominion. You see like Triceratops running with, I think it's like elephants in Africa, or you see the mosasaur swimming with whales and stuff like that, which it's interesting. I kind of like those ideas. I would have liked to see a movie that actually made good on that on like a smaller scale. I think it was, Colin Trevorrow. I think maybe there was a little short at one point in time, and it was just like a family on a camping trip. And it was kind of like they were just doing their thing, and a couple of dinosaurs happened to be around and kind of ruined their trip, right? And it's like the regular Jurassic World or Jurassic Park carnage kind of, plays out. And it was like I'd be more interested in stories like that, or basically what you're saying, like let's try and do the park or the world or something like that. I really like Jurassic World in terms of we were actually seeing the theme park, the commercialism built up. It was kind of really tongue-in-cheek. It knew what it was doing. And I at least like to see it functioning and all the chaos breaking out with, hundreds of guests at the park. That was interesting. I think the following movies where it's constantly just returning to the islands or returning to secret sites, and this is just another returning to a secret site sort of movie, I'm definitely sick of those. But I also don't really know how you do a Jurassic World movie or a Jurassic whatever movie, if we don't want to say world, and try and do something smaller scale or something like that. It's just dinosaurs are going to bring a big budget with them regardless. There's so much VFX required, especially if it was going to be, a new true reboot of the franchise sort of thing, that I just don't really know how you accomplish it. It's something that obviously they'd be so worried about renaming this something else than Jurassic World Rebirth, and afraid people wouldn't flock the theaters, that I don't know. I think they're kind of pigeonholed. I think it might be the time to let this rest. Again,
well, I mean, I know what they need to do, and I hope you don't have like super tight pants on when I talk about this, but I'm just saying, the mythology, everything we're kind of presented with these, 7 movies, they need to do an entry, a found footage entry. They need to do like a family, like you said, like a family camping, like this short, but it needs to be found footage dinosaur carnage. And even if only one guy, Colton, shows up to the theater, it's a success.
Yeah, I mean, I would be there 100%. You can do that for quite cheap. Yeah, I mean, maybe it is like a small group of people going back to the original park or something, and it's all rotten and, destroyed. I don't know. It's just, I don't know how to make this franchise feel more interesting. I don't feel the way that these movies, and specifically Jurassic World, feels, where it's like, who cares about dinosaurs, or these are just boring. And I think the box office numbers for every single one of these movies prove that that's not the case as well. People just love showing up to theaters. Speaking of which, my theater, I saw it on a Wednesday night at a late screening, like 10 o'clock at night. And it was, no joke, probably 3/4 full. There was a young kid who was sitting kind of in the front row at the bottom of the break before the true front row. So basically, I decided to go late, so I had to sit like 3 seats from the front, 3 rows from the front.
Oh, always lovely.
And yeah. So I had like the neck breaker seats, right? And this kid was so excited watching this movie. He absolutely loved it. He screamed, "It's so cool," at the D-Rex when it was like fully revealed. And the fact that these movies think dinosaurs are boring, or like no one wants to show up to see them anymore, it's just it's so funny because a Wednesday night in Newfoundland, everybody's out to see it at like 10 o'clock at night. I don't know if your theater was very busy at all.
Yeah, it was packed. It was pretty much sold out.
Yeah.
Because, we went Thursday. It wasn't like the late showing, but it was, it was like the evening, 7 o'clock, showing. And it was packed. And, everyone was pumped. Everyone had their Jurassic Park shirts and their hats on and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, I think like we said, there was a lot of reaction I saw from like the kids all around and my own and stuff that definitely like thought it was pretty scary. Now, I mean, I haven't seen a Jurassic Park in the theater since like, I don't know, 2 or 3. So I don't know. World just doesn't give off that vibe. I can't imagine anyone was like hiding their eyes in Jurassic Fallen Kingdom or anything. So that aspect I really liked, because obviously, I'm like, scare these kids. Let's, give them a little taste of that horror. Hopefully that blossoms them. But I mean, at the same time, like even my own, like kids that were hiding their eyes are also peeking through their fingers because they like,
of course,
they want to see the dinosaurs. They want to see what's going on. So my crowd was absolutely rowdy. People were pumped. Some people clapped, which was weird because I was waiting because I was like, there's no way there's not going to be a T-Rex in this. And that wasn't it. It was the tall grass when they get like the big, whatever, the like Brontosaurus type with the long
I think it's
tails.
like Titanosaurs or something in this, yeah.
And they kind of, they do that repeat beat of the first one of like the wonderment of seeing these like giant creatures and like people were like pumped when that happened. They like, which was funny because we already had like this whole water scene and epic going on. Like people were like all right with that, but this one people were like, whoa. And like we said, like in general, like the dinosaurs look good in this. Like, I mean, this is a big budget, but yeah, the audience was ready. They want Jurassic Park in their veins. So,
and would you recommend our listeners to go check it out in theaters?
I talked all that shit, but I mean, probably still, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, at the end of the day, like, it's a movie about dinosaurs, so where's it gonna look best? It's gonna look best on the big screen, and, for my qualms with this movie, like, the budget wasn't wasted on the CGI of it and all that stuff, and this isn't like you and me's hatred for CGI birds in movies. Like, it looks good. Like, most of the time, this looks really good. And there was a lot of stuff, too, that I was like, there's no way that there were certain scenes here that weren't practical, that you could tell were pretty.
Yeah, they got real dinosaurs in here.
Yeah, like these are actual live dinosaurs. They're the government's withholding from us. They only use them for Jurassic World movies. But yeah, no, I'd recommend it. I mean, I think it's cool. Take your kids to it. You know, give them some wonderment. And I think there's enough horror in this that I think it's like a gateway horror drug. So yeah, I'll recommend it. What about you?
Yeah, I'm a little bit. I'm like waffling back and forth. I would probably say if you're a fan of dinosaurs, you've probably already seen it. If you have kids, obviously, sure, bring them to the movie. I think if you're just a fan of true blue horror and you don't care about dinosaurs or these Jurassic movies, maybe you can wait to check it out at home on your nice TV. I think if the score was really excellent, I would recommend everyone to see it. But I think some of this scale obviously is best conveyed on a theater screen.
Yeah.
But you probably could get a pretty decent read on that with a large screen TV in the comfort of your own home as well. I guess, sure, go see it. I mean, it doesn't need your money. It's making boatloads of it. There'll be a new one of these in 3 years' time. But, you know, what else are you doing? I guess go see it.
I think you're just recommending it because you're scared that Universal take away your Jurassic Park credentials if you don't say okay.
Yeah.
Is it Universal that does these? Yes.
Yeah. Hopefully they never check out my drafts of my Jurassic World Dominion review. I never did post one, I don't think, but it was scathing. I was drafting that baby for probably 3 or 4 days in my iPhone notes. So, hopefully they never see that. So we're both recommending this one somewhat to check it out in theaters. And with that, I think it's time to cut to our spoiler discussion for Jurassic World Rebirth. We are now in our spoiler discussion for Jurassic World Rebirth, so if you've not seen Rebirth, it's time to tune out and come back once you've seen the movie, or keep listening if you simply don't care. Rowan, anything off the top of your head that we need to get into for the spoiler-filled discussion, or should we just talk about the Snickers bar devastation?
I mean, yeah, why don't you lead us in a Snicker bar's devastation? You can't have a lead up like that and not talk about it.
I fucking groaned. I kind of hated this conceit of a Snickers bar destroying the whole, this high-tech laboratory about how, I don't know, one of these schlubby scientists are walking by and a Snickers bar falls out of his pocket and gets sucked into a ventilation shaft. And that is kind of the catalyst for this, apex mutated T-Rex, D-Rex getting
D-Rex.
out. Yeah, I was like, oh no, we're in dicey territory here. But the sequence itself was really good, I thought. In terms of the D-Rex kind of creeping out of the fog, the reaction shots of the scientists kind of trying to figure out if she was going to unlock the door. Of course, the one getting eviscerated in front of her. All that stuff was really well handled. It was just, the inciting Snickers bar that I was like, this is definitely some product placement. It's also kind of cute because it's, you're not you when you're hungry sort of thing. But I groaned a little bit. I can't lie.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame he didn't keep it for the D-Rex, and then maybe the D-Rex would be cool if you fed him the Snickers bar.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's an idea for the sequel, I think.
But, the beginning of this, the end of this with the kind of climax with the D-Rex, it was kind of interesting because, I remember seeing the trailers and, I'm not going to lie, there was a lot of groans from me where I'm like, man, I'm like, what? Like I said, I'm already not on board when it's, totally off the real dinosaur path, and I'm like, okay, then I'm like, Gareth Edwards, we've got, this Godzilla-sized dinosaur that's just, towering over everything. But I will say, watching this, I did think the scenes were effective with it, so I kind of gave it a pass, which I didn't think I was going to do.
Yeah, I agree. I saw some toys and stuff. There's a friend of mine, Josh. He's a huge fan of these movies like I am. He's probably more of a fan than I am. So he was following all the leaks of the toys and whatnot. So he knew everything about this movie, I think, before going in. And he sent me a toy of the D-Rex, and it showed how it had all these arms, and it had kind of the head almost like a beluga whale sort of thing. And ours, basically what we said was, that's going to be terrible. That's not going to be scary. It's going to be awful. We were not looking forward to seeing it at all.
Yeah.
In action, in the movie, I think somehow they tread the line pretty well between this is a monster and this is also some sort of weird-ass dinosaur. And I liked how it was used. It was very sparingly. It's not like the Indoraptor in Fallen Kingdom where it's like, okay, it's just a black velociraptor. It's not like the Indominus Rex in Jurassic World where it's just larger, white, you know. And this felt like actually a completely unique creature that somehow also felt sort of like a dinosaur. So I did actually like it in the end. And specifically the moments where the helicopter's coming in and the fog is really thick or the smoke's really thick behind it. And you're catching like glimpses of it with the red, you know, the teeth coming out or just an eye or, you know, a claw. That was great. And I was genuinely surprised when the helicopter got destroyed at the moment when it did. Obviously, we weren't expecting them to all escape on the helicopter at that moment, but the way the shot was composed, kind of the pacing of the scene, I didn't expect the D-Rex to get the jump on the helicopter and completely demolish it at that moment.
Gareth Edwards was in his shit at that time, because you're like, okay, like this guy is so comfortable in this kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, I'm just echoing exactly what you said. I was just really surprised at how successful it was used. And I think I was kind of looking back on it, and I mean, like we said, this is the 7th one, so it's kind of hard to recreate that, like, terror from the first one of the T-Rex escaping and, you know, eating people and causing all this carnage, where I was like, to me, this might be the most successful since one at just, like, wow, I've never seen this. It's kind of terrifying. And I was just like, I was surprised because of how much other sloppiness I felt went on in the movie that I'm like, they kind of landed this. Like,
yeah, I thought it was well done as well. I think we needed a little bit more carnage. I would have, you know, obviously some of this family unit or someone in the main cast should have died, you know, that sort of thing, just to make it a little bit more threatening and even harrowing. But I did enjoy the execution for sure, and obviously Martin, the pharma bro who gets his comeuppance by the D-Rex kind of using its extra arms to pass him along and eat him and stuff, that was some good stuff. I enjoyed that.
And I mean, you're touching on what my biggest thing about this was that there's just no stakes in this movie whatsoever, because literally everyone... Like, it's just, like you said, like...
They're unnamed characters that are red
characters.
Like, you don't know who they are.
Like, there needs to be some sort of stakes that, you know, like let's kill off the boyfriend in the family. Absolutely. Or...
Should have killed him off instantly because he was so irritating.
Yeah, I mean...
But absolutely, you know.
And it was kind of set up. I'm like, all right, like, we already hate him on, like, from the get-go, so let's get going. And to me, with the no stakes, by the time I'm getting to the end, I'm like, oh, okay. Like, literally everybody is going to survive. The minute I saw the flare after... Marshall Ali's character like lures him out, but then you see the flare after, and I'm just like, I was so upset.
I know, just toothless, right? Like didn't commit to it. It was the sort of thing where I wish the writing was better earlier in the movie to really sell that this character had a death wish of some sort, or at least if he died, there was no issue with it.
Yeah.
And then we really believed in his death, and maybe they even committed to it. But if you were going to do the fake out, you really needed to do the groundwork to make us believe that he's truly gone. Because I think most of us at that moment didn't believe Mahershala Ali was dead, because it was kind of rushed for a character beat of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, when you get to a Jurassic World movie, I mean, other than Dominion, of course, but this movie where you get to the end and there's like 9 people in the final climax and none of them die other than the bad guy, it is a little disappointing. It was the sort of thing where we should have killed off a few of them throughout the movie anyways, but let's go back to the boyfriend. He's irritating, first of all, as I've said already. He's kind of like a 50-year-old man's perception of what a Zoomer kind of loser boyfriend, teenage boyfriend is, who has no ambition. So that was kind of irritating anyways. He's like a whatever man.
And his only other big movie is Fear Street Prom Night. So
oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, oof. Okay. But he's awful. I didn't enjoy him in the movie. He's kind of the comedic relief character, so I hated him. But then he also gets what is kind of one of the villainous dinosaur poachers scene from The Lost World, where he's like, I'm going to leave. I got to go take a piss. And in The Lost World, this poacher goes out, rocks a piss, gets attacked by compies, is, you know, ripped apart eventually by them, you know, eaten in a river, and it's a great scene. And I thought we were going to kind of get a play on this. Now, I think this was filmed actually a little bit more interesting, where he was in the foreground. There was some velociraptors that were actually sneaking up on him in the background, and then you get this mutodon, this like weird hybrid of a velociraptor and a pterodactyl mixed together, come in and take out a velociraptor. And I was really hoping that this guy was going to get, you know, at least swooped off right at the end of the scene or something, right? And I thought that's what they were building up to, because they did all this groundwork to give him essentially the same setup as that, you know, villain character essentially in The Lost World. But then they just don't bother doing it. There's loads of times in this movie where I just thought, you know, someone was going to die and somehow the scene just ends with a comedic beat, or they just walk away. It was a little strange. I don't know why they didn't commit to it a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, he should have been killed off. I mean, this goes into like another one of my rants where just kill this family off. Just like, to me, like I said, there's two stories here. There's the family that has like pretty much absolutely nothing to do with the other story. And then we have like, you know, these kind of, you know, military contracted by the company and all this kind of stuff. If you're going to use the family, I wish it had been intertwined better, because
I agree with that.
These guys kind of like separate, and then it really is like two stories going on, and it's really conflicting because I didn't love the family storyline. That was the least favorite of mine, but for the general, take the D-Rex out of it, they probably had my favorite scene, which I really did like, the T-Rex stuff with them.
The T-Rex in the river. Yeah, I liked it as well. We'll get into it in a second, because I want to talk about the family as well. I don't hate the family in this movie, but I do agree that it's two separate movies, and to me it almost feels like it wouldn't be something that would be filmed, obviously, like in a reshoot, because it's way too substantial for the movie, but it feels like a late script edition. It feels like the movie was kind of built around originally, almost like this militaristic idea of coming in and you're not hunting these dinosaurs, but you kind of are. You know, you're at least getting the blood from them. It's like you got to do all the work of a hunt without the kill, essentially, with this highly trained group. And essentially, I think they just needed something for the kids. They needed something for people to latch onto emotionally. There's a little bit of will they, won't they between ScarJo and Jonathan Bailey.
Yeah.
That's his name, right? Yeah. So there's a little bit of there, will they, won't they on the go. But the family unit in here is meant to evoke a lot of the shades of the original one, obviously, with Lex and Tim and, you know, Sam Neill. So it's just, I like some of it. I wish they were better integrated. I wish there was something like, you know, the sailboat sequence. I really liked that sequence. I thought it was pretty well done in terms of, it was a little bit dragged out, but in terms of the you didn't know if they were going to drown, you didn't know if they were going to get eaten. The way it was framed, a sailboat flipping over, like I just thought it was once again, it's that sense of scale, right? I wish kind of that happened and somehow they got swept up to shore or something, and then we were able to skip all the stuff with them on the boat and one of them not knowing how to swim, and, you know, basically, let's get them to the island. The other people will make it to the island. They can get the mosasaur along the way. And then, you know, their paths can converge probably halfway through the movie, sort of thing. And this family unit is a little bit more feral because they've been trying to survive on the island and, you know, with these dinosaurs and whatnot. I think I would have preferred it more. I agree that it's very much two separate movies, and one movie feels a little bit like classic Jurassic Park to some degree. They're recreating some scenes like, you know, the father and Alan Grant with Lex and Tim in the tree with the Brontosaurus. They're kind of recreating that and some of the framing and whatnot. So it's the sort of thing where they're really evoking shades of Jurassic Park with their story, and they're evoking a lot of shades of like Jurassic World.
Yeah.
You know, the highly competent military people with the other side. I really didn't like that too much because I felt they didn't face much resistance to cover their mission. You know, it's like, we need to find the Mosasaurus. They go right up to it. Don't get me wrong. That's the one that's a little bit more dicey. Obviously, like, there's people get knocked off the boat and a couple people get eaten. But with the Titanosaur, it's like nobody really gets damaged in that. They just go up, they shoot it, they get the blood, they move on. And even the Quetzalcoatlus, it's like one person, some red shirt dies, you know, and it's an exciting sequence. but it's just I didn't find
Well,
what
you
they
knew
were
he
doing.
was going to die. He's French the whole time, so.
Exactly. He had too many subtitles. They made people read 10 lines of dialogue for this movie. So it was like they were either in a sequence with a dinosaur where all they had to do was fire a dart, or they were delivering exposition walking through the forest. So I actually didn't like them very much in the movie. I did prefer the family, but the family had the issue of having that one annoying character with it.
Yeah.
So it is like I didn't fully like either of them, to tell you the truth.
Well, and, I know no one's, no child wants to hear, an almost 40-year-old man complain about, I just, and like the Dolores thing. I'm like, all right, man.
Come on, you need Dolores.
I don't know. I wasn't
Not a fan of Dolores.
You know what? I like Blue. I thought Blue was fine in the worlds.
Yeah.
Let's have a little danger. I don't need this like tiny, what are you doing with that dinosaur? Like Blue is just so much better. You gotta have a raptor. You gotta have something cool. Like,
oh, I agree. Blue is cooler for sure. But
yeah.
Dolores is a nice little stuffed animal that all these kids can have in their backpacks, this holiday season. So,
and there's like some questionable parenting going on here with this kid that has a backpack of only candy.
Eating Twizzlers the whole movie.
Yeah, where's the fruit? Where's the vegetables? What's going on here?
True. Rowan, you wanted to talk about the T-Rex thing, and I kind of brushed it aside. But I agree. I love the T-Rex River sequence. I've been kind of talking a bit, so how about you talk us through it?
Yeah, so obviously, I thought the tension was built really good with, we obviously have, like, the sister seeing the boat on the other side, and you already know. You're like, okay, like, this boat, it's right there. You just have to cross this river, and there's no way this is going to go well. And then I just thought it was really interesting because we get the T-Rex in a position that I've never seen a T-Rex or thought about with a T-Rex.
It's almost like a dog.
Yeah.
It's like rolling over on its back. It's sleeping.
It's sleeping. I'm like, oh, well, look at that cute little guy. Like, just hanging out.
And it teleports, which is incredible as well. I've never seen a T-Rex do that either, so...
Yeah, exactly. A teleporting T-Rex. I just thought like the tension was built really good for this because obviously, the T-Rex like waking up and it's like an animal. It's like lazily, like slowly waking up, and so you're like, oh, is it gonna, is it just gonna roll over and then go back to sleep or whatever? I love the tension build with this. You knew, like, the minute you saw this, like, raft thing, and you're like, this girl is gonna be so loud. She's a teenage girl. She's like, you're like, she's gonna have to drag it. It's heavy. Like, so obviously this is gonna happen. But I love this whole thing. We have the river also is like this other enemy competing, and, it's bringing them down. And then we actually get the youngest child in some danger. And I'm not an idiot. Like, we know they're not killing this little kid in Jurassic Park.
Could you imagine... like the franchise suicide this would be if they had the T-Rex just eat this child in the raft.
I mean, I don't know if
insane.
It would be a suicide, but I feel like the executives would be excited because I'd give it a slay. I would be like, yeah, okay, let's go.
It would have been insane.
Yeah, that would be insane. But I thought the tension was really there. And even me, as an adult, I was like, everything with the raft, I was like, oh, this is very like tense, and I thought it was really successful. Like the T-Rex, because at first I'm like, oh, the T-Rex is just gonna like penetrate this raft, like, so. But I loved like it pushing the we kind of get the Nightmare on Elm Street effect of just like the rubber pushing in the mouth, and I'm like, this looks awesome. I was like, this is great. Obviously, they give you, like 3 seconds, like, oh my God, this kid is like dead. And then obviously, pops out, and even the little crevice that they kind of go through, and then you're getting that classic Jurassic Park, like T-Rex, a dinosaur can't fit its mouth into something.
It bursts its head through, and it looks like the cover of the VHS,
the
for The Lost World, with its mouth wide open.
Yeah, and to me, I just really thought this scene was like fun, successful, tenseful. That's not even a word, but it is now. And I was like, let's go. Like, this is Jurassic Park. This is what it should be, where there's some real stakes. I mean, the only thing you're missing is a guy on the toilet that's going to get eat. And, you know, maybe the next one. I don't know what they're going to call the next one. Like Jurassic World Rebirth, Redo. I don't know. Like,
they got to do Jurassic World Extinction at some point, right? But yeah, like that got to be coming. That's when
That's
like the end of the next trilogy. Yeah, it's probably the end of this trilogy, and then they finally got to reboot it to be Jurassic Universe or Jurassic Country or something. Yeah. I don't know, right? Like you got to go that way. The one thing in that sequence, I mean, I absolutely loved it as well. Apparently, it's a sequence from the original novel that was just never adapted in any of these 6 other movies. So I really thought it was great. The Dilophosaurus was right at the beginning of it, which was, of course, it's another just reference or kind of baseless homage. But I was like, okay, well, there's the Dilophosaurus again. You know,
yes,
you gotta come in for
why didn't I bring that
frilled
up?
The frilled neck, you know, dinosaur there, just kind of screaming at the camera. So that
was always my
good.
like second favorite dinosaur in the first one. So big
Nice.
marketing. I feel like the toys for that were always wild, and it was always on pictures of stuff. I guess colorful. It's got the colorful thing going on.
Big merchandising.
Yeah,
dinosaur. That one is. The other kind of, I got 1 or 2 little notes left. The Mutodon in the gas station, I thought was a pretty good, once again, this is just reference. It's basically the raptors in the kitchen scene. But I thought it was well done. I thought it was interesting seeing it staged in a gas station or convenience store with all these different little pieces of Jurassic World kind of tourist memorabilia, but also like food. And the idea, I really liked how smart the kid was of actually covering up the light inside the cooler when she crawled inside. And I actually wasn't sure if the Mutodon was going to see her, or at least kind of like almost break the glass, obviously not get her. But I think the tension was built up there well enough, and it was actually a very smartly filmed and staged kind of dance that the actors and the Mutodon was doing, similar to Raptors in the Kitchen, that I thought it really worked. I really liked that sequence.
I thought that was also very. So look at me, just I feel like I'm really coming around on Jurassic World Rebirth. I'm like, yeah, that also worked out. I also like good. That scene, and obviously, yeah, if you're our age, you're like, oh yeah, Raptors in the kitchen. But this is where, you know, as I continue to say, like there's a lot of competent stuff in this that I'm like, it's just a shame that. I was going to say the small things. The story's not a small thing, but like,
well, that's what I said, right? Yeah. In the spoiler-free section, I was like, oh, you know, it's a shame that the story sucks and the writing sucks, and you know, it's a slow-paced movie. But I think kind of the core of some of these sequences, the action set pieces with the dinosaurs,
are good,
and the way they're filmed and staged are good.
Yeah,
they are solid. If you could put them in a movie that was, you know, a little bit quicker, probably 20 minutes shorter, and, you know, the script had another pass or two, we would be talking about a completely different movie here, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I really did also enjoy that scene.
I don't know if you have much left to talk about. I have one final note that's just kind of a little button on our discussion, where I thought the dolphin ending, where they're all in the boat, they're talking about how the business deal that was basically brokering the impetus for the whole movie, we're deciding to go a different way at the end, and basically life finds a way, and we're all, you know, driving off to a nice future, and they look outside the boat and the music's playing, you see the dolphins going by, and it's very similar to, you know, the pelicans flying by in the helicopter of the first movie. I thought that was cute. At least they didn't do exactly pelicans going by, but I was like, all right, that's how I guess you end one of these movies at this point.
Well, they've set up where the havoc comes, which I thought was an interesting turn in this movie. Was there's a lot of talk about open sourcing, and
there is,
how you know, we're basically just gonna, you know, give all the hackers, all the internet's people, were like, why not just give them dinosaur DNA and let them do what they do? Because I mean, that never goes wrong. There's no one ever uses the internet and hacking for negative things. There's nothing bad ever happens.
At least in this case, it's for developing a heart. What is it? A serum or some sort of cure for heart disease is what they're trying to do. So that'll be wonderful.
Very noble.
Put that out open source, and, you know, it'll be just as common as Tylenol on the shelves. And with that, I think if you're new to the podcast, our review rubric is nay, okay, yay, or slay. So Rowan, what would you give Jurassic World Rebirth?
So I was thinking, this is tough, because I I came way up on this, even just talking about it and realizing all the scenes at work. I still think I have to give it an okay. I think it's like it's like a medium high okay. Just when I think back at I did really enjoy Jurassic World, and I'll be honest, even with the flaws 2 and 3, I really have enjoyment. That first 3 are a pretty really rocking trilogy to me, and then obviously the rest I can kind of take or leave, and this would be somewhere in there. I feel like it would be in the mix. I feel probably the 5th best one, maybe.
Yeah.
And so, you know what? I think an okay is fair. I think there's a lot of good stuff in this. Like I said, a lot of the dinosaur main sequences are really effective. I like the scale. I think Gareth Edwards just directs the shit out of those scenes. Obviously we've known, throughout his filmography that this is kind of his thing, and he can create these grand scale kind of pieces. Although I would be, saying that, I would be interested. I know they would never do it, but I'd love a little R rating one. I
agree with that too.
Kind of Andor style. Let him do his thing where he could you could do some sort of spin-off, and I just think he'd rock at that also. Because why not? I mean, I feel like this franchise is big enough that you should be able to have all these different facets of it. They've got cartoons already, and, so why not be able to spin it off into even a one-shot R-rated, kind of maybe lean more into the horror of it.
That could be the found footage one.
Yeah, the found footage one. Hit Colton up to direct it. Yeah, I think all in all, I'll give it an okay, and people should be happy I gave it okay, because I went in I was there's no way this is going to be good. This is going to be an A. I already know. I sat down expecting it, and yeah, I thought it was way better than I expected. What about you?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I would give this an okay as well. It's the sort of thing where I think Fallen Kingdom is pretty bad. Yeah. Dominion is absolutely terrible. What I would say is this one's the second best of the 4 Jurassic World movies. I think putting it in 5th place is probably right where I would put it as well.
Yeah.
It's the sort of thing where, as you've already said, I said much earlier, the cinematography is great, the sense of scale is amazing, the set pieces feel very fitting, and they're unique, and they're interesting, and it kind of kept me engaged. Filming on location was a great idea. And, the negatives are there, which they are big, which is it is the reason why I can only settle on an okay. It's just the pacing. It's too slow. The writing is god-awful. And the fact that you don't have a solid score for what was supposed to be kind of this rebirth of the franchise is very disappointing to me, because I know you weren't there when Jurassic World came out, but for me, I was sitting around for 15 years kind of waiting for this sort of movie. I was following it back in, the mid-2000s when the talk was it was going to be dinosaur-human hybrids, and it was probably going to be closer to a Turok movie.
Oh, nice.
So when that came out, and it was scored by Michael Giacchino, and a lot of it was very kind of sweeping and romantic and very emotional, kind of similar to some of his work that he did on Lost, mixed with obviously a lot of the John Williams stuff. I thought that was a great score. It was the perfect melding of old and new, and a lot of the new stuff was still really good. This, whatever that there is new, I wouldn't be able to tell you. It certainly wasn't remotely memorable. It would never be the sort of thing that I'd throw on to listen to in the background, or think is inspiring in any sort of way. So yeah, with those detractors, the most I can give this is an okay. And with that, if you're not following us already, you can do so at It Slays Podcast. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Slasher, Letterboxd, Threads, Bluesky. If there's a social media, we're probably there at It Slays Podcast. And if you want to help support the show financially, like our horror hounds Holly, Nicholas, Mark, Steven, Dan, Brian, Trevor, and James, gain access to the Patreon exclusive show Stream Screams and get episodes of the main show 48 hours early, be sure to head on over to patreon.com/itslayspodcast and choose whatever tier works best for you. Rowan, I just shit all over the sound, the score of this movie. I assume nothing on here is making the playlist that wouldn't be on there already.
We have the original score on there, so we don't need this one. But you can go listen to the original score at the It Slays Podcast Horrific playlist on Spotify. If you have any problems finding it, you can go to any of the social media that Colton just mentioned. Go in the bio, click the Linktree link. It'll take you directly there. We upload scores and licensed music from iconic horror movies we review, or just horror movies we love. We update it pretty regularly, so go follow it and get your spooky music on, because why the hell not?
And next time on the show, I don't really know quite what we're going to be covering. This is kind of a little bit of a quiet period here, I think, for a couple of weeks. There might be some streaming releases we'll check out. I know What You Did Last Summer is coming up here within a few weeks, but there's nothing like immediately that I can't wait to see, other than, you know, Together, I guess, if we're going to do that. That's early August. Yeah. Even with all the plagiarism stuff around that.
I can't see, so even if you're not there, I can't see us not talking about I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah, I feel like Jill would definitely come and check that one out.
Colton's tapping her in.
Yeah, I'm taking her in. I don't know if I'll be there for that one, but we'll see. A couple weeks' time. And with that, I think that about wraps things up for this episode. So until next time, I'm Colton.
I'm Rowan.
And as long as you keep listening, we'll keep slaying.